because my co-authors, and I'm not usually, listen, I would call them out here. There's 4 authors of this book, it's not mine, 4 authors. There's Jimmy Baca, Jimmy Santiago Baca, who is the screenwriter and one of America's great poets. Jimmy, now you're going to hear him after we finish here, because you're going to hear something really special. It's going to be called a poetry reading by a great poet. Jimmy wrote original poems to all of the images in this book. So when you get it, you're going to look at it, you're going to hear a true Chicano voice. And what you're really going to hear when you see the film is that voice. Do you think I could do this movie? It's not my culture. I love the culture. I grew up with Chicanos. I spent time in their homes, and they were always welcome. But you can only do a film like this because it's a tough movie. I produced La Bamba. La Bamba's Luis Valdez directed it. And Danny Valdez, who's one of my closest friends ever, he and I, dreamed of making La Bamba, and then 15 years later, when we were both, he was too old to play Richie, we ended up by making the film. But the point is that Luis writes the intro here, and you'll hear how this film came about. All the way through, it was magical. And, when you go to Islos, I made the 3 main actors, and you say, I made them. You can't make people do anything. But there's something good about being able to have new actors who haven't really made it yet and are hungry. And I said, listen, Jesse Borrego's from San Antonio. He's puro Chicano, but he's from San Antonio.
Yeah.
All right, de Tejano. Damien Chapa is from Ohio. His father was puro Chicano from Robestown, Texas. And if you know Robestown, lots of gangsters from there. So he kind of understood. And then Ben Bratt, Ben Bratt is from San Francisco. And I'll tell you an interesting thing. Ben Bratt came in, and I said, wait a minute, we're going for Paco? Why is the guy named Bratt going for Paco? I said, I want the white guy to be Miklo. And the casting, Rick Pagano and Sharon Bialy's great casting directors, said, just wait until you see him. So he comes in, Ben Bratt, he comes in, beautiful, total Indio look, fabulous. And I say, okay, we're going to read for Paco. He says, no, I'm not reading for Paco. And I go, what do you mean? He says, I'm reading for Miklo. And I go, I don't know, man. I said, I'm sure that's cool, but you got Miklo's a white guy. And he said, that's my story. I am Miklo. My father's German, my mother's Peruana from Peru. And I said, Ben, I got to tell you something. God pulled a fast one on you. You came out puro Indio. If we cast you in this movie and we say you're white, no one's going to believe it. So there's a lot of great stories in this piece. And then we find Miklo Velka, and Miklo Velka is like we only at the very end. How do we find someone like this? He's supposed to look white, so I looked at all these white actors, great actors. I said, I want to get somebody who really inside is this. And they said, well, good luck. Well, he walked in the door. And the rest is history up here on screen. So anyway, these are all important things. There's some people here in the audience that I need to introduce because they're important. When you make a film in Islos, I had told Jesse and Damien and Ben, you got to move to Islos because none of you are from here. So for 2 months, they lived at City Terrace, right over there. And that, I think, they got the stink of East LA in their bones. They really, really, really understood what it's like to live there. And they didn't go home at night. They didn't say, oh, I'm going to the job, and at 6 o'clock when it gets dark, I'm going. They stayed there, and I think you see it on the screen. And so that was a very important thing. Big George, his family is here. Big George and his brother were there living in their family, and they lived with them. So they really soaked it up. Now, the other part of it is this. This is part of the movie. We're going to La Pinta. And this is a tough story. It's the real deal. about the founding of the Mexican Mafia. Now, Jimmy Baca, you know, he lived this story in the sense that he went to jail. He spent 7 years in jail. And he went in not knowing how to read or write. And talk about turning your life around. He learned it, and he subsequently won the American Book Award for poetry. So that tells you how people can turn around their life. But I'm going up, and this film takes place in San Quentin. So I write the warden. And when I write the warden a letter, I'm saying, hey, you know, I'm a filmmaker, I want to make this movie, I'm doing this thing. And I got a kind of a reply back from a correction saying, the warden will see you, all right? So I go up to San Quentin. I go into an office, and I meet the warden. His name is Daniel Vasquez. I walk in, I went to meet him, and I looked. He's got a placazo. You know what that means? He was in a street gang. He's Paco in this movie. He goes up, he changed his life, he went in the military, he comes in law enforcement. He ends up by being the warden. And if you know the term mero, you all know it. I was called in on the set. It was one of the great honors of my life. But the mero is the guy who calls everything. When you go into La Pinta, there's one voice, there's one thing, and it's the warden. And you know, the President of the United States doesn't have that kind of power. Everything that happens because of the warden. And I met this barrel-chested guy, you know, and he was very nice, but like this, right? And I did my pitch, my pitch, and he goes, all right, I'll read the script. And I thought, oh shit. No. But what can you do? I gave him the script. And I went back to LA and I waited. And I got a call to come back to see the warden. I knew when I got a call to come back, the word had to be good, right? If he said no, screw you, I would have never gone up. I walk in, he said, who wrote this script? And I said, Jimmy Santiago Baca. You know, he's a guy who really spent time in the drum. He said, you don't have to tell me. Whoever wrote this knows what he's talking about. And because of that, this very tough warden gave us the opportunity to shoot in Cuba. And I must say, he also broke us first. he made us, you know, we're from Hollywood, we know what we're doing. He said, no, you do things the way the warden. And basically what Danny did, once he broke us and we understood we had to do things his way, which is not changing the nature of the script, just do things, because we're in there, we had traveled with 300 real cots. So, you know, what was happening is I took 6 Chicanos, 2 whites, 2 blacks in there. And they were working every day with the real deal next to them. And Danny understood that. And we got another warden, by the way, believe it or not. His name was Bobby Vasquez. He wasn't Chicano, he was Puerto Rican. But he'd been the warden at the prison in Rahway. I'm sorry to go on like this, but you're here, you love this film, I want you to know something about it. And all of these things are blessed. If it wasn't for Jimmy's words, if it wasn't the fact that the warden of San Quentin was a Chicano. By the way, Danny Vasquez is here with his wife and family. Danny, stand up, will you?
Where is he?
Thank you. If it wasn't for these kind of bits of luck and fortune, but the thing that we wanted out of this, and the thing I wanted, was I wanted to be authentic. I want you, and I wanted my primary audience was the Latin audience of this country. We never got in the theater, so they never got to see it. But guess what? You found it.
Woo!
And we're here tonight because of you. So this is pretty wonderful. And Rick, my co-authors, Merrick Morton, who took those photographs in here.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. And my other author, who unfortunately is not alive today. We lost him a couple of years ago. Adan Hernandez from San Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Adan.
The paintings in this, well, they're on the screen. They're Cruz's paintings. But Adan had the burning soul of a true Chicano artist.
Yep.
And it just breaks my heart that he can't be here because he would really love this.
Yep.
And of course, Jimmy wrote all original poems for all these images. So this is not just a trip down memory lane. It's our ability to talk about this and what became of it. And we want to talk about that because you know you've been on the internet. But there is somebody here tonight that I want to call out, no other local politicians, but there's a congressman from Tejas. He's Joaquin Castro.
Yeah.
And he has nominated this film several times to be in the National Register of the Library of Congress because he thinks it's an important statement about Latino film. Joaquin, where are you?
All right. Yeah. Long live the Republic.
Yo soy
When
Joaquin.
that happens, and you've been relegated for 30 years to the trash heap. And that you just have no idea what that means to us. So I know I have forgotten some people. Shay Cunliffe was our costume designer, was here. And Freddie Negretti, one of the things you're going to look at in this film, I said it in a little interview here before, you know, you're in the pinta, it's called tattoos are part of the life. And I called, you know, one of the great tattoo artists and kind of the godfather of tattoo in California, and I said, I'm making a film and I want it to be authentic. And he said, well, there's only one guy. He introduced me to Freddie Negretti, who learned his art in Cuba. And what happened with the actors, Freddie, I said, listen, I want you to design these things. He said, I got great ideas. I said, but I want you to meet with each actor. And each actor will choose the tattoo that they're going to have on their body. And then Freddie was going to give it. So it's a very creative process. You know, you decorate your body when you, I don't know how many of you have tattoos, but the fact is, when you decide to have a tattoo, it's meaningful. And it was meaningful to these actors. Second of all, we've got 300 cons around them with all tattooed, so they had to look real. And they do look real. And there was another person I want to mention, Freddie Blau, because, you know, when Freddie Negretti put them on, they're just ink on skin. And you know, sweat runs. What are we going to do? This guy was a makeup artist. He said, I've invented a process to fix tattoos on skin. His name was Freddie Blau. He saved our bacon. It was unbelievable. I mean, I got Miklo and Magic Mike going into a hot shower in San Quentin next to all these guys. And water's falling on them, tattoos stayed. So all these little things are behind the scenes, but I want to give you an idea what went into making this movie. It was a collaboration of great artists. And they were behind the camera. I'm now going to introduce the people who were in front of the camera. Before we begin, there's one major character who's not here. And he's not here because he's in Paris directing a movie. And, you know, when you're the director, but the actor, you can say, we'll get him out. Director's got to be there. He's got to be there. So Damien Chapa, who played Miklo Velka, is in Paris, but he sent a video. And so before I introduce everybody else, let's see him on screen.